Late that night, Toshi crept into Obina's room, a knife clutched in her trembling hand. Before she could hesitate further, she struck. Obina's scream shattered the silence of the night, waking everyone in the mansion. Servants rushed in, followed by the wives. The scene before them was one of horror: Obina, writhing in pain, blood soaking the sheets, and Toshi standing frozen, the knife clattering to the floor. Obina was a name known throughout Lagos. He had come from humble beginnings, working tirelessly to build his empire from scratch. His sprawling mansion stood as a testament to his success, adorned with marble floors and gold trim that gleamed in the Nigerian sun. Yet, for all his wealth and influence, his greatest desire was not power or status, but women. Amora was his first wife, the one who had stood by him during the lean years. She was wise and strong, carrying the weight of the household with dignity. But as Obina's fortunes grew, so did his appetite for new wives. Next came Chika, sharp-tongued and ambitious, then Ifeoma, gentle but fiercely protective of her place in his affections. Zoe was the fourth, young and breathtakingly beautiful, capturing Obina's attention in a way that the others never could. Amora, another one. How many more will he bring into this house? Chika snapped one evening as they watched Zoe walk through the courtyard. Quiet, Chika, Amora said, though worry clouded her eyes. Obina will do as he pleases, and we must play our part. Little did they know, the arrival of another woman would shift the balance forever. Amina was unlike any woman the wives had seen before. Her presence was commanding, her beauty captivating, and her mind as sharp as a blade. The moment she stepped into the household, the air grew tense. Obina had met her during a business trip and was instantly smitten. On the day Amina arrived, the other wives gathered to meet her. Amoras' face was composed, hiding the unease that twisted her gut. Chika's eyes narrowed, calculating. Ifeoma stood quietly, observing. Zoe, who had once thought herself secure as the youngest and most favored, felt a shiver of fear. Welcome, Amina, Amora said, forcing a smile. Thank you, sister, Amina replied, her voice warm but her eyes daring anyone to challenge her. Obina stood between them, beaming with pride. My wives, this is Amina. I expect you all to welcome her with the respect she deserves. The words hung heavy in the air. Respect was one thing, acceptance was another. The days turned into weeks, and Amina's influence grew. She was not content to stay in the background, as the others had done when they were new. She spoke her mind freely, offering Obina advice on business and household matters. He listened, much to the irritation of the other wives. One afternoon, Amora called a secret meeting in her chambers. Chika, Ifeoma, and Zoe gathered around, their expressions wary. Amina has taken too much control, too quickly, Amora began. Obina's attention is no longer ours. Chika scoffed. Did you expect anything less? She knows how to play the game. Ifeoma, ever the voice of reason, frowned. This will only lead to ruin if we let it continue. Zoe, who had stayed silent, finally spoke. What can we do? She has already captured his heart. Amora's eyes darkened. We remind him that loyalty should be rewarded, not ambition. The wife's plan was subtle at first, small acts to undermine Amina's influence. Servants were bribed to spread rumors, mistakes were made to appear as Amina's doing, and Obina's business associates were told half-truths that planted seeds of doubt. Amina, sharp as ever, began to sense the change. The warm smiles from the household staff turned cold, and the once friendly glances from her fellow wives became sharp and suspicious. Obina, is something troubling you? Amina asked one evening as they sat together in the parlor. He glanced at her, the shadow of doubt crossing his face. The market whispers, Amina. They say there is discontent within my own house. Amina's chest tightened. She forced a smile. People will always talk. But you know me, my love. I would never bring shame to our home. Obina nodded, but the seed had been planted. Rumors spread quickly in Lagos, especially when they involved someone as prominent as Obina. Traders gossiped about Amina's supposed ambition, saying she sought more power than was proper for a wife. Amora listened as she shopped for spices, feigning disinterest but noting every word. Chika, who had come along, smirked as she heard a vendor mutter, "Amina will be his downfall. Mark my words." That's what happens when a man lets his desires cloud his judgment, Chika whispered to Amora as they walked away. Amora's eyes narrowed. We will not let it come to that. The tension in the mansion was palpable. Even the servants avoided lingering in the halls for fear of getting caught in the crossfire. Amina felt increasingly isolated. She sought out Ifeoma, hoping for an ally. Ifeoma, you have always been fair. Tell me, what has changed? Why do the others turn their backs on me? Amina's voice wavered for the first time. Ifeoma looked at her with a mixture of pity and caution. Sometimes, being strong makes others feel weak. And in this house, weakness breeds danger. Amina's resolve hardened. If they wanted a fight, she would give them one. Obina sensed the change but was too distracted by his business dealings to confront it head-on. One evening, as he reviewed trade ledgers in his study, Amora entered. "My husband, I worry for you," she began, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "This household feels different. Unsettled." Obina sighed. "I have noticed. But what is the cause, Amora? Is it the jealousy of many, or the ambition of one?" Amora hesitated just long enough for doubts to deepen in his mind. "Perhaps it is both," she whispered. Determined to regain her standing, Amina hosted a dinner for Obina's business partners. She dressed in her finest, ensuring that every detail was perfect. The other wives watched from the sidelines, their resentment simmering. "Look at her, acting as if she owns this house," they muttered. "She may soon, if we do nothing," Chika replied darkly. The dinner was a success, but it only fueled the other wives' determination. Obina, impressed by Amina's poise and intelligence, felt the embers of his doubt cooling. Amora called another meeting, this time including Toshi, the newest and most naive wife. Toshi had been brought into the house to strengthen Obina's connections with a powerful family, but she was young and impressionable. "Toshi, you must prove yourself," Amora said, her voice low and urgent. "If Amina takes over, we will all be cast aside." Toshi's eyes widened. "But what can I do?" Chika leaned in, her smile cold. "Act boldly. Show Obina that you are willing to protect his legacy." Toshi swallowed, fear and ambition warring within her. Late that night, Toshi crept into Obina's room, a knife clutched in her trembling hand. The other wives had planted the idea in her mind, telling her it was the only way to prove her loyalty. As she stood over Obina, who slept peacefully, doubt clawed at her. But Chika's words rang in her ears, "Prove yourself, or be forgotten." Before she could hesitate further, she struck. Obina's scream shattered the silence of the night, waking everyone in the mansion. Servants rushed in, followed by the wives. The scene before them was one of horror: Obina, writhing in pain, blood soaking the sheets, and Toshi standing frozen, the knife clattering to the floor. Amora was the first to react, her eyes wide with shock. "Toshi! What have you done?" Toshi fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "They told me, they said it was the only way." Obina's voice came out as a ragged whisper. "Why, Toshi? Why?" Before she could answer, Chika stepped forward. "We need to call for help. Now." The household erupted into chaos, servants running in all directions and the wives exchanging looks of horror and triumph. By dawn, the news had spread to the village. Crowds gathered outside Obina's mansion, murmuring in disbelief. The elders, led by Chief Ode, demanded answers. This household has been cursed by envy and betrayal, Chief Ode declared as he stood before the gathered wives. We will have the truth. Toshi, still trembling, was brought forward. I did it, but I was told to. I was told it was the only way to save us. Chief Ode's eyes narrowed. Who told you this? Silence fell over the wives, each one avoiding his gaze. Amoras stepped forward, her face pale but composed. Chief Ode, this house has been a nest of jealousy and deceit for too long. Toshi acted out of desperation, but it was not entirely of her own doing. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and Chika's eyes flashed with panic. Amora, what are you saying? I am saying what needs to be said, Amora replied, her voice steady but weary. We have all played a part in this. Our envy and our fear of losing Obina's favor led to this tragedy. Chief Ode's gaze shifted between the wives, his eyes hard and unyielding. This is no small matter, Amora. If there is more to this story, we must hear it now. Toshi, her face streaked with tears, nodded. They told me to show loyalty. They said it was the only way to keep Amina from taking everything. A murmur swept through the onlookers. Chika stepped forward, her face twisted with rage and desperation. Lies. Toshi is trying to save herself. She acted alone. But Ifeoma, who had remained silent until now, took a step forward. Enough, Chika. We cannot hide the truth anymore. We all had a hand in this. One by one, the wives spoke, their voices a mix of regret and defiance. Amora admitted to planting the seeds of distrust, Chika confessed to manipulating Toshi, and Ifeoma revealed her silent complicity. Zoe stood apart, her face pale, knowing she too was guilty of letting the household descend into chaos. Amina, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. This is what envy and unchecked ambition have wrought. I came here as a wife, not a rival, but I was treated as both. Chief Ode nodded solemnly. It is clear that this household has been poisoned by greed and jealousy. And now, there must be consequences. The elders deliberated for what felt like an eternity. The crowd outside waited with bated breath, the weight of the morning pressing down on everyone. Finally, Chief Ode stepped forward, his expression one of sadness and resolve. Toshi, for your crime, you shall be banished from this village. Amora, Chika, and Ifeoma, for your roles in sowing discord and fueling this tragedy, you too will be exiled. Cries of shock and disbelief erupted from the crowd. Toshi wept openly, while Amora bowed her head, accepting her fate. Chika's eyes were wide with terror, and Ifeoma's shoulders slumped as the reality of their punishment settled in. Amina, Chief Ode continued, you will remain, for you are not the cause but the victim of this household's envy. Let this serve as a warning to all who let jealousy guide their actions. The procession through the village was somber. Toshi, Amora, Chika, and Ifeoma walked with their heads bowed, surrounded by villagers who watched with a mixture of pity and condemnation. The whispers followed them like a shadow. Such a fall from grace, an old woman muttered. They brought it upon themselves, a younger man replied, shaking his head. Toshi clutched at her cloak, the weight of her actions pressing down on her like an iron hand. Amora walked beside her, eyes fixed ahead, refusing to show weakness. Back at the mansion, Obina lay in his bed, pale and weakened from his injury. Amina sat by his side, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The once proud man was now a shadow of himself, the consequences of his own desires laid bare. Amina, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I brought this upon myself. My greed, my endless pursuit, it has cost me everything. Amina squeezed his hand gently. Rest, Obina. What's done is done. Let it be a lesson, if nothing else. Obina's eyes fluttered closed, a single tear slipping down his cheek. As the days turned into weeks, the story of Obina and his wife spread throughout city. The elders used it as a cautionary tale, warning young men of the dangers of unbridled desire and the havoc that jealousy could wreak. Let Obina's fate remind us all that wealth and power mean nothing without harmony and trust, Chief Ode would say during village meetings. Mothers whispered the story to their daughters, and fathers warned their sons. Amora, Chika, Ifeoma, and Toshi settled in a small, distant village where no one knew their names or their shame. Life was hard, and each day was a struggle for survival. Amora, once the matriarch of a grand household, now walked the fields alongside the others, her hands blistered and raw. Chika's sharp tongue and defiance faded over time, replaced by the weariness of hard labor. Toshi, the youngest and most broken, barely spoke, haunted by the image of Obina's face when she had struck him. "We pay for our sins, day by day," Amora said one evening as they sat around a small fire. "But perhaps, in this suffering, we can find redemption." Back in Lagos, Obina's condition worsened. Without the strength and confidence that had once defined him, he fell into a deep melancholy. Amina tended to him, her love for him tempered by the realization of the cost of his choices. "You were never a cruel man, Obina," she said softly as she placed a cool cloth on his brow. "But you let your desires rule you, and it consumed us all." Obina's eyes opened, cloudy and distant. "I see that now. But it is too late, isn't it?" Word of Obina's fading health spread through the village, and with it, the story reached those who had once envied him. People spoke of him with a mix of pity and caution, as a man who had everything yet lost it all to his own vices. Chief Ode visited one last time, standing by Obina's bedside. "The village mourns for what you once were, Obina," he said. "But let your story guide others." Obina nodded weakly, the weight of regret more suffocating than any ailment. Then he breathed his last. That was the tragic end of Obina. He died because he couldn't control his lust for women. What do you think? Did Obina deserve what he got? Kindly let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.